item is found in your packet. On page 9. And there you have the questions you feel on the agenda, but we'll take a look.
Yeah, they were supposed to be here. The board can discuss it or we can pass it up. Okay, we can pass it up then.
Madam President, I make a motion that we table this until further time that we have a representative from Fresno to present their proposal. I really don't want to deal with just their paperwork.
Now, for like a second, then. Then, no. Table. To the next.
LLOC.
Table to the next LLOC. Call the roll.
Trustee Lee Cross?
And the date of the next LLOC?
September 10th.
September 10th.
So that passes the date of this? Just. No. I would have preferred to have discussion on it.
Table on the floor.
I said no.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know, is there an opportunity for questions? Or an amendment to the table motion? To perhaps speak on it at the regular board meeting, which is next week.
Okay. Keep going.
Because we started the vote, why don't we complete this vote?
Trustee Jacobs?
Stay.
Trustee Dorse?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Lightfoot?
Abstain.
Trustee Rivers?
Aye.
Mayor Perkins?
No.
It's a tie.
It's a tie.
It's a tie.
Motion failed. So now.
Motion failed?
Yes.
Trustee Rogers.
So the question I want to ask, is there an opportunity to,
Motion.
like me?
That one died.
No, well, no, I'm not making a motion.
Okay.
So I'll,
In the LLOC, you can have discussion without having a motion. So, you want to make a discussion, Trustee Rogers?
yeah, I just wanted to know if there's opportunity to, I guess I need the attorney's advice on this, if there's opportunity to have this on the, as a part of the mayor's report on the regular meeting,
Absolutely.
which does happen before the date.
Mayor,
Trustee Cross.
we keep talking openly about meetings, but no dates or references. Since we've been on summer hiatus, is there, can we announce what dates we're talking about? So when is the next regular board meeting?
August 19th.
19th, so that's, okay. If that might be included in the reference to the recommendation.
Is there a motion on the table?
No, no motion, you can have a discussion. So you want to make a motion, or Rogers, you want to make a motion, or? What the other is?
I would like to finish making my statement.
Okay.
Okay, given that the request is for September 6th, suggestion to have discussion on this so that we could send back to the proposed vendor our questions so that if he or she is present next week, they can bring all the information or have it available
Myers to get the information and present it to us. Okay. Mr. Rogers? Mr. Rogers?
I guess one of the things that I would like to know, I was not able to distinguish cultural diversity amongst the performers and entertainers. So I would be interested in knowing if this is something that does have some level of cross-cultural appeal, or if any of the performers are something other than African American.
Okay. Mr. Myers,
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor,
Trustee Crawford?
I had two other questions. Is this, crossing the village? Because I see some, figures in here and I wasn't quite clear. And then the second question that I have is with regard to liability. And who's responsible? Are we partnering, or is this a request to just do it and have use of the venue?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, I have questions.
And then there is a insurance policy here, for, I think it was, a request for one, but it was unclear. I mean, is the process, Mr. Myers, that, they just submit a blank form because it wasn't executed by anyone? So that's another question that I have.
Yes. The process is, they would have to complete an actual FEST application. We have a comprehensive application that requires a certain amount of insurance, and it's routed to each department. This proposal just came forth last week, forwarded by the mayor's office. She requested us to bring it on the agenda for this discussion.
But I mean, are we partnering with this? Are we paying for this, or?
He will give you that information.
We don't know that up front.
Well, they presented a budget, but if that's what you want to do, you can partner with them, or you can have them totally in charge. That's up to the board. Trustee Baker.
I apologize for not, having leave to come back and not getting in on the beginning of this discussion. But in most instances, when we have a proposal like this, the person who's making a proposal would come and approach us so we can ask whatever questions are necessary. So this sort of pushes the event back even later by that person not being here. So we could ask these specific things and know who is actually asking, because I saw a couple things in here. It says host and assist with organizing the event. So I mean, they should be here to promote this, so we can ask them. And I don't know if that was discussed, but that's my comment on that.
Thank you. All right. Next item.
Next item on the village manager's
So,
report.
excuse me, did this get tabled to the next meeting or what? I mean, what am I to understand?
No.
It died.
There was never a
It died for lack of.
Table, just a request to have.
Trustee Lightfoot, second.
It didn't, it died.
It died for lack of.
It didn't get passed.
Right, so the motion for tabling was voted on and it did not
It did not pass.
It was a tie vote. So if someone wants to make another motion, say to bring it back to the village board meeting next week, that's fine.
There was directions that was given for Mr. Myers to obtain the additional information before it was brought to the
Okay.
regular board meeting.
So if Mr. Myers obtains the information prior to the board meeting, he'll
Yeah.
bring it forward then.
It'll be on the agenda.
Okay.
But is that with the provision that the person who's making the request is gonna be here, or you're just gonna have a discussion and bring that information back to us?
We want the requester to be here. Next item on the agenda, under item D is manager report. We have a bond ordinance entitled an ordinance providing for the issuance of up to $7 million general obligation refunding bond series 2014 of the village of Maywood, Cook County, Illinois, for the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on the said bond. This is refinancing the bonds. We have Representative Kevin McKenna, along with Spears here, has to come forward. County back on page 24. This is the actual execution of the refinancing of the bond.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. I'm Gerald Davidson. I'm Joe Bond Counsel and partner at law firm Miller Canfield.
Could you speak up, please?
Yes, good evening. My name is Gerald Davidson. I'm a bond attorney at Miller Canfield and the Miller Bond Counsel, and I prepared this ordinance, which is the refunding bond ordinance that would authorize the sale of the bonds and the issuance of the bonds upon certain parameters, with the main one being savings to the village, as we discussed in the past. So I'd be very happy this evening to answer your questions about this ordinance at this time.
Are there any questions? Trustee Ross?
Mayor, I suppose that my questions would be for our finance director as well as our attorney. There's probably about 70 pages of information here, and I would like to know, I tap into their expertise in terms, in your view, is this consistent with the things that we put forward at the last meetings to ask that council drafted these documents? So I'd like to know from our legal expertise as well as our finance director if this is what you expected and if you are recommending that it be moved forward for approval. Maybe I'll start with the finance director.
I would say yes to the numbers, but in
Can
terms,
you get up?
I
and
would
come to
say
the mic?
yes to the numbers, but in terms of the actual verbiage, I think that's something that the attorneys would be better able to discuss. But it does reflect what we talked about in terms of savings.
For
adding
for that second option, because there were two options that we favored the second.
Yes.
And for our part, Mr. Jerusik went through all the documents. They did reflect his understanding of the discussions the board had. He made some minor edits and returned them to bond counsel, and those are incorporated in this final set of documents.
Mayor,
Trustee Ross?
having heard that, I would move that this item for a bond ordinance for the 2014 series, as well as the levy for direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest of these bonds, be moved to the regular meeting for consideration of approval.
Second.
Then moved and second that these be moved to the regular board meeting. Are there any questions?
Mayor,
Trustee Cross?
two questions. One, who requested that this be placed on tonight's agenda?
I placed it on the agenda just to keep this moving. It was already went forward, already entered in letter of engagement. The board already gave direction on what route to go. This is actually execution of the refinance.
Okay, and the second question that I have is I heard Attorney Mars indicate that Mr. Jerusik made minor edits to this. Is there a black line document that shows the changes, or can you specifically state tonight what those changes were?
I cannot, they were, there's a lot of documents here. I believe he forwarded handwritten edits to you, sir?
That's correct. And they were of the nature of, there were various typos and a couple of definitions, but there were certainly, I would think, rightly characterized as minor, and I was very glad to get them. It's always good to have an extra set of eyes looking at documents like this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Lee Cross?
Aye.
Trustee Jaycox?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Lightfoot? Trustee Rivers?
Aye.
Mayor Perkins?
No.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Item number 2 is proposal for architectural service for the rehabilitation of the front porch at the Soldiers Home. The Soldiers Widows Home located at 224 North First Avenue. This is by Frank Heitzman. The item is found in packet page 100. We also have our architect Frank Heitzman here if you have any questions. This is a proposal to provide architectural service to reconstruct the front porch on the Soldiers Home. This is a budgeted item coming out of the St. Charles TIF, and this is to get the process started for him to draft the plans to then have a proposal to take forth the contractors, meaning a RFP from the local contractors to provide services by construction. Looking for a motion to approve it and push it to the next board meeting.
Mayor,
Trustee,
I would like to make that motion to have the proposal by Heitzman Architects move to the next regular board meeting for approval of this modest contract to perform professional services to oversee the restoration of the porch for the Soldiers Widows Home.
Second.
the move in second, the proposal for architect for the front porch at the Soldiers Widows Home. Are there any questions?
Madam President,
Trustee Rivers.
I'd just like to be clear. What is the proposal to do with the Widows Home? Once we put this money into it, what is the plan? What is the plan? I mean, are we gonna, yeah, I mean, I want to know, what is the plan for it? I mean, if we're spending the money on it, are we gonna, what is the plan? I would like someone to step forward and tell me, you know, because I don't want to keep guessing.
Mayor,
Who was that that said? Right, Trustee Rod.
Mayor, the Widow Soldiers Home is, the Soldiers Widow Home is village-owned property that has sat in a disrepair for quite a while. The plan, in my view, is to take property and have it look like property needs to look in the village of Maywood. To do the same thing that we would ask any citizen to do with their own property, or any business to do with their own property, which is to get it looking decent. The opportunity for this budgeted item is before us. This is a very modest proposal to prepare the things that allow that to happen. I do believe that if this property were someone else's, they would be receiving citations. We need to practice what we preach. We need to move forward and set an example. And what happens is when you do that, then you begin to get the interest. We have a pretty comprehensive report that will be given later on in this agenda that speaks more to that. But the fact of the matter is, it needs to happen because it is not something that makes our town look good in its current state. So this rather modest investment in getting us to where we should have always been is something that needs to happen as soon as possible. I might add that the architect here is very familiar with not only that particular property and this neighborhood, but he has been instrumental in a number of other things, as well as the institution of learning over at Triton College. So we know that this is someone who can be trusted to perform the service. We know this is someone who has an interest in Maywood and the surrounding community.
Trustee Cross.
Mayor, first of all, my second was made to open this up for discussion. One thing the board needs to understand is making a second to someone's motion is not necessarily that you are approving or agreeing with that issue. It's just to second it so that we can open it up for discussion. So that was the reason for my second on that. I do have some concerns because as Trustee Rivers as well as Trustee Rogers spoke on, we have a situation here where we have a piece of property that is owned by the village. It has been neglected for many, many years. It's an eyesore, and we've done nothing about it. But sometimes we make a decision to put the cart before the horse. And we're talking about spending additional village funds when we haven't truly arrived at the decision of what we're going to do with the property. So we can continue to spruce it up, spruce it up, spruce it up. But to me, I think more importantly than sprucing it up is making a decision first and foremost as to what we're going to do with the property. So we're spending money, and then if we decide to sell it, we've wasted a bit of money because the new owner of it can then tear it down and do what he or she or they choose to do. If we decide we're going to keep it, then that makes sense to continue to do the things that we're talking about doing. But again, I say, I think that we really need to get to the issue of what we're going to do with the piece of property instead of continuously trying to do it because we're losing money. We're securing it, and we have no seller at the moment, if that's the case. So why are we continuing to do this, and we haven't decided what we're going to do? That's a discussion that this board needs to make before it talks about spending any additional money on something that they haven't made a final decision on what they're going to do with it. That's it.
Mayor?
Trustee Jacob.
That's okay, you can go ahead and I'll come back.
Mayor, I think everybody's in agreement that there needs to be, which is why you have a very comprehensive study before you, but the order in which things happen is really not what the issue is. The truth of the matter is when a citizen has a property that's in disrepair, they don't get to say whether or not, well, if I can sell it, I'll fix it. No, you will fix it or you will get a citation. Why should we be any different? The appearance as it stands right now is not what it should be. We should have fixed it. We haven't. We're late, but it certainly is time and there is opportunity. And so, by the way, anything that you want to sell, you don't put it in its worst light to sell it. You do what it takes to make it look good enough to get the best proposal for it. And so in its current state, we would never get the best proposal. But just as a difference has been made, by the way, by the private citizens who have reached out and have gone and boarded up and painted up and those other things, that makes it look significantly better than what it had before that was even done. When the weeds and things were cut, that made it look significantly better. So it's not like it's a whole lot of money. It's enough to make things look the way it's supposed to look. And I just think it's a really bad message to send to a community to say, well, you get to decide what you're going to do with it in the future, rather not to keep your property up to the standards that it should be. No, we all need to get our property up to the standards it should be as soon as possible.
Trustee Jacob.
Well, I certainly agree with Trustee Rogers. We do need to make some structural repairs to it regardless of what we're going to do with it, whether we put it on the market, keep it, or what have you. Because it is an eyesore, it's a piece of property that we should have been maintaining all the time, regardless of what we were going to do with it. Being that it's on one of our major thoroughfares, it certainly is unsightly as you come into the village of Maywood. And it's a liability to us, period. Even if people were gonna go in there, inspect it, look at it, or what have you, with the, state that it's in right now, I mean, it's certainly a liability even to the architectural firm going there trying to decide what they're gonna do. So, with these monies coming out of TIP, is my recommendation that we go ahead and make the necessary, repairs, at least to determine what we're gonna do with it, because even at that basis, we would have to get in there and see what we're gonna do, or anybody else. Sell it, keep it, whatever. So it's my recommendation as a part of this discussion that we go ahead and spend the $7,500 out of the TIP money.
Trustee Crawford.
I just want to come back to what statement made a moment ago about the investment. Real estate is sold as is across America. They don't always spruce it up. And we still have limited funds, so I think, again, we need to look at what it is we're going to do with this. And once we decide what we're going to do with it, then we can make these decisions. And so I'm going to ask this question. Who put this item on the agenda? Is this another one of those? How did we arrive at putting this on the agenda for tonight?
I put that on the agenda. This is a budget item out of St. Charles TIF. The fund needs to be spent by the end of the year. The board already gave direction to approve this item along with cleaning up inside of the building. So I put it forth so we can move forward to get it approved and reconstructed if that's the direction the board wants to go.
Mayor,
Somebody said, Mayor, I didn't catch it.
that was me.
Trustee White.
Thank you. Mayor, I also asked that the item be advanced. And in fact, there's a number of things that we all ask that come up as soon as they're at a state where they can happen. So it's not like you ask specifically at any moment. When we put forward, moving this forward, when the data and information comes available that allows it to get to that point, then that's when it appears before us. Just like the thing about the bond issue. We had asked that the bond attorneys work that up. When they got it done, that's when they bring it forward, that's when it makes it to the agenda. In addition to that, it is my understanding that the Historic Preservation Commission also pursued this matter and asked that it be put on the agenda. I've heard requests from citizens at even mass meetings asking, when is this happening? So I think the village manager did the right thing to, as soon as he got that proposal, to put it before us so that we can speak to it.
I'm sorry, Trustee Lightfoot.
How much are we spending for this board up? 10,000 a month? Is that right? How many board keep this building open?
Trustee, I don't know top of the head, I'm sorry.
Okay, I was told about 10,000 a month. Now, if we spending that much money to keep that building board, just to get boarded up or nothing, we could put this other $7,000 in and they could look good enough to save it.
The only comment I was gonna make is that we request that the citizens who have property, if your property is not what it should be, you will be fined. We have to set an example. So we allow this property to go like it is, and here we got the opportunity to clean it up. Personally, rather than get a fine, we should clean it up, because first of all, it belongs to the village of Maywood, and we're not leading from behind, which is what we would be doing by not taking care of it. We gotta lead from the front, take care of the property is my suggestion, do what needs to be done. I can understand, sold as is, I have no problem with that, but this has been like that for a long time, and it looks bad, especially on our main street. We gotta do something about that. We got over there and clean the weeds up so it does look better. So now we have to do another step, would be my suggestion. Given my opinion, and that's what it is, my opinion only, that we need to do something and stand up and be accountable for what our own property look like. Thank you.
Mayor, I would call them for, I would request that you call the roll if that was numbered.
Call for the question.
Question?
Call for the question. He called for the question.
No, he called for, well, I have a question.
Okay, Trustee Rivers.
I I still just, just my original question, is there any plan, I beg your pardon? Is there
No
any
comment
plan,
from the-
is there any, I just like to know, is there any plan for this, to spruce this property up? I've heard in the last 5 years, I'm not against it. But my point is, I just like to know if there is a plan in works, or if there's someone interested. I heard that the governor was interested in doing a veterans. I mean, I'm just asking to clarify my vote to move this forward. What are we talking about doing with this? Is there any kind of forward-moving plan? That was just my question. And I'm saying, I see representatives from the historic commission. Trustee Rogers is champion this point. I'm just asking, what are we gonna do? Is that $7,500? Yeah, it's a modest amount. Okay, to clean it up, fine. All I asked was, is there anybody planning on doing anything with it? I've heard numerous proposals, and
Mr. Myers, is there anything on our schedule that's looking to purchase, buy, or do anything with the widow's home at this point?
Well, Mayor, first of all, we have a presentation right after this by Landmarks Illinois to give us some examples of how it can be reused. Also, at the end of the agenda, the exec session, we're going to continue the discussion about the sale of the property. Answer your question, we have anyone not to go right now?
Yes.
No, we do not.
Okay, that's the
However,
question he's asking.
yes, however, it's up to the board. We have things on the table to highlight this property to make it more marketable.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Trustee Cross.
for the record, I want to also say that I'm not against it, but because we have all of these issues here, and this board has not addressed them, that is why I have the concerns and I threw out questions, because they need to be answered. And since we have these other issues that are coming before us tonight, that is the reason why I asked, why was this put on prior to us having the other discussions? So that's what put me to ask questions.
Trustee Jacob.
Mayor, we've been having ongoing discussions about this property for quite a while. And right now, we're only trying to put it in a position to do whatever it is we're gonna do. To hear all sorts of presentations, we've talked about some things that we would like to see happen. Some people have presented some things to us. And I think that we've opened it up for discussion to make a good, intelligent decision about what we're going to do with that property. And that's why some of these things are coming forward. In order to do anything, whether the village decides to keep it and do something with it, or take the recommendations of Landmark Illinois, the historic preservation, or whomever, the building has to be in such a state to consider anything. And I think that that's all we're trying to do right now with this $7,500, is put it in a condition to have something done with the building, period. And entertain any other proposals to us. And once those proposals are made, I think we'll be in a position to decide what's the best thing to do in the interest of everybody. But could you repeat the motion again?
Mayor, my motion is simply to have the proposal from Heisman Architects moved to the regular board meeting agenda for consideration of approval.
That's the original motion, right?
Yes.
And we had a second already, right?
Yes. Call the roll.
Trustee DeCross,
Who seconded?
trustee you did.
Yeah, you
No,
Yeah, you did.
for the original one,
Yes.
okay, all right, I'm sorry. Aye.
Trustee Jacob.
Aye.
Trustee Rogers.
Aye.
Trustee Lightfoot. Trustee Rivers.
Aye.
Mayor Perkins.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Item number 3, on the village manager report, is presentation on the rehabilitation and reuse opportunities for the soldiers' home located at 224 North First Avenue. And Landmark Illinois is here along with their architect.
Thank you.
This is off, David, and that's.
Yes, it is.
So is it, you're able to turn on?
I think you'll have a problem if you could just elevate the board.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? All right, City Piera, nice to see you all again. I'm Director of Advocacy of Landmarks, Illinois. I was here before you in the spring when we discussed Landmarks, Illinois taking on a review study for the Soldiers Widows Home. And so we are back in front of you now with that completed study. And I have Chris Payne with me as well, who is an architect with Sullivan Roulette, who was one of the firms that worked with us. Chris also lives in Oak Park, so is a nearby person who is very familiar with the building. And so if it's okay with you, what I'd like to do is just run us through the presentation. I think you all received hard copies of it as well. But for the benefit of the audience, we'll speak to it on the screen, and then at the end, welcome your questions. But one thing I do want to just quickly say, and I want to give this to you, David, is that as a reminder, we did put this building on our annual endangered list in 2012, as was mentioned in the letter that we passed. And one of the follow-up things we did in 2012 was we did commit $500 in grant funds. We just used for some kind of fix-up kind of work. I'm not sure $500 is a lot of money, but it can go toward the $7,500 budget that was discussed earlier, and that money was never expended. So I'll give that to you, David, so you won't have to take the word on it.
Just scroll down a second.
Great. So what we did is we basically introduced this study talking about the concept of Landmarks Illinois' proposal here, and first acknowledging, of course, the citizens of Maywood. Tom Press is here, who's the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, which has been a long advocate for this building, as well as Trustee Rogers and many other citizens. And the picture you see in the upper right-hand corner, of course, is one of those volunteer days that was referenced earlier. This is a building that I think has a lot of sentiment to the community in a lot of ways, but then obviously, as we've been hearing too, there's been a lot of frustration with the long time abandonment of the building and the current condition of it. What we talk about in this study is that the opportunity that we see for this building, and you were correct, Trustee Rivers, that there have been other proposals for this building in the past that for whatever reason didn't pan out. One thing that we are really pushing here is that because there is a lot of vacant land next to the building that is also village owned and is also being looked to be sold, to be redeveloped, that the whole property of the Soldiers Widows Home and the land to be looked at is one comprehensive site, that we don't look at the building in isolation, and that there's really an opportunity for developers to look at this as one large redevelopment site that could include both rehabilitating the historic building and developing new construction on the adjacent vacant land. And one reason we think this is important is because if you have two separate developers, one doing the vacant land, one doing the building, there can be a lot of conflict, especially in terms of access to the property, alley access, entrances to the different components of parking, whatever it is that may be necessary. Whereas if it was one large comprehensive development with either one developer or a team of developers working together, there's more of an opportunity to see a more comprehensive developed package here that can include the building as well as the new construction. And I think everyone wants to see both. I think people want to see new development on the vacant land as well as the rehabilitation of the historic building.
So on this page, we're acknowledging that that is the premise of the proposal, as well as the fact that some key things that we want to remind everyone, and that is that one way that's going to be a major attraction to people, to developers, to take on a building like this is the use of historic tax credits. And the only way historic tax credits are going to be accessed by developers if the building is officially listed in the National Register of Historic Places. And it is eligible, we did confirm that with the State Historic Preservation Office. So that is a great incentive that a developer will have available to him or her in terms of redevelopment of the building. Earlier, a picture was sent around of the architect. This is actually something we found on eBay not too long ago. The caricature of the architect who was a well-known, Mr. Dunlap was a well-known Maywood citizen and someone who did a lot of buildings in Maywood, and also is best known for having been one of the final candidates who got an honorable mention for the Tribune Tower competition for the downtown Chicago Tribune building. He died very young in age, and so there was a lot of mourning in this community for this architect who really was very engaged in the community on the Park District Board and in many other philanthropic efforts. And then, of course, the whole mission of the Soldiers Widows Home was to help widows and families of veterans of the Civil War and then through the World War I. And then, of course, that just is in keeping with this community's dedication to veterans and people who have dedicated their lives to military service. So one thing we're showing here, too, is that we have a great opportunity with this site, both with the historic building as well, again, with the vacant land, that this site is ideally situated location-wise to many medical facilities. What you're going to see in our presentation here is that what we're proposing for use for this building is office use, but it could also be really targeted medical office use. And that's very in keeping with its location and has the opportunity to serve that way because of the fact that we're surrounded by so many medical facilities in this region. So the map is just giving you a little bit of context there. Of course, we all know what the site currently looks like in terms of the opposing corners as well. A lot of commercial development, and when I was here before you in the spring, we got the a directive from you that you did not want to see residential in this building, that you wanted to see it a commercial use, that the whole focus on this site would be commercial redevelopment, which again I think is appropriate from the standpoint that you have other commercial uses on the opposing corners. Surveys we've included just for your information. So again, the existing condition, very excited that Frank is looking at this porch in terms of helping get it refurbished and looking better so that it can be marketed better for sale. And so we had our team of architects go to the site, which included not only Chris and his colleagues from Sullivan Goulet, but the man in the blue jacket is Bill Hamp, who's a preservation architect with the firm of Vinci Hamp in Chicago, and they actually just finished restoring the state capitol in Springfield. So they're a well-respected firm, and definitely felt that the building has what we like to say, good bones. You know, what happens is you look at a building like this, the paint is peeling, wood is rotting, and immediately the feeling is the building is falling apart. It's really not. Structurally, it's very sound. I think your own studies have shown this in the past. And then you have a very dedicated volunteer force that has done some of the things that we see like in the middle image of just sort of cleaning up some windows and trying to make the building more presentable. Some of the interior shots, again, peeling paint, you know, reflective of moisture, and very much repairable, as terrible as it looks. So I'm going to let Chris take over the presentation from this point in terms of both the findings and recommendations of both firms in terms of addressing the building itself and the site plan.
The study for the building proper, as Lisa said, was done by Vinci Hamp. And so the next few plans that you're going to see were prepared by them. And what they're showing is the existing organization of the building seems to work very well with the kind of proposed use that Lisa already mentioned as an office use. The site plan shows that the building has a presence on First Avenue with a grand porch and a very distinctive look. One of the other opportunities that we have is that because there's some land behind the property, we can provide parking directly behind the property for people who are both visiting or working at the proposed offices. Access for visitors and workers will be through the rear, and with the addition of a new elevator within the building, it will become completely accessible. Not much would have to change about the organization of the interior of the building. As you can see, it has a long central corridor with a series of rooms that can be divided however they need to be off of them. So, you know, if you need a conference room, that can be carved out. Reception area, other usable spaces, and then with an opportunity to do something on the front porch, either as a kind of conference area, as shown here on the second floor and on the first floor. It could be enclosed and used for conference and waiting room and seating, or it could be opened up and just treated as a grand entry to the building. Here again is the typical floor plan in the upper floor that shows the various office or leasable spaces. Sullivan Glenn Wilson, one of the strengths of our firm is that we do a lot of development-driven work, so that we usually really have the pulse of what's going on in terms of development, whether it be small commercial development or residential development. And what we looked at is three different ways that a developer might envision the site. As Lisa said, one of the ways to really make this work is to couple the vacant properties, vacant land, with the existing property, so that new construction with rehabilitation can result in an overall development which helps to reinvigorate that entire corner. So you're not just looking at redeveloping that building. We're looking at it as a way of creating a new gateway for Maywood. It's the confluence of two major streets. We have the possibility of putting a large building on the corner and having an architectural feature on the corner so that building can act as a sort of gateway. In this scheme, there are three buildings that are part of it. The widow's home is will be the office building. Just south of that will be a new construction. One of the things that we're showing in the plan that we think will be important if a developer were to look at the site is to bring the building back off of the street a little bit, so that it somewhat aligns with the front of the existing widow's home, so that it doesn't come up to the street and overpower it. So one of the things is that the overall development takes advantage of both of the creating interest on the corner, but also always giving a nod to the existing building. In the scheme, there's a large parking lot in the rear, so that buildings confront all of the main streets, creating a more pedestrian-friendly environment, creating an environment that looks like it's inhabited and has a Main Street sort of feel. The second one is a similar proposal, But unlike the previous one, this one does have two buildings, but it's set up in a more traditional, what you might know of as a strip mall arrangement. In this, again, we're still trying to create a street presence. Here, one on the east side of the site and one on the west. Again, also taking the building on the west and backing it up off of the street so that it aligns with the face of the widow's home. And then again, creating a parking area in the center. Most likely, both of these buildings would have various retail components that would have access off of the parking area. The parking would be very visible. That's something that's usually very attractive to developers, particularly developers who develop these kinds of strip mall arrangements. And the final scheme, again is a three-building arrangement. A large building is located on the corner. This one is a possibility of being a larger market or other larger retail, single user retail tenant. To the north of that, again, is the widow's home. Between them is a shared parking lot, and they have access off of First. And again, the large building is backed up off of First so that we have that nice alignment with the widow's home. But then also both the buildings along Lake Street come right up to Lake Street so that they again create a more urban presence, creating more pedestrian-friendly environment. And then the building on the west is a smaller building, which could, become a smaller bank building, a small restaurant use, something like that. So this lends itself to a more diverse group of uses. I think that's. And then we had some examples of the kinds of buildings and renovations that might kind of work well with the existing rehabilitated structure. That a variety of both modern and more traditional looking architecture could be proposed, so that anything that's proposed will be in harmony with the existing structures. And these are some examples that are both local.
And one is actually not too far from here, right, at Cermak and Harlem in the lower left corner, a redevelopment that seems to be pretty successful recently. So again, to Chris's point, the idea here is that you can have both. You can have both rehabilitation of a historic building working in tandem with new construction, redevelopment, and they can work well together in terms of scale and design. And the other thing that we include in the report, again, is just a reminder of the kinds of incentives that are available for a historic building. So as I mentioned, because the building is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places, that means automatically, once it were to be officially listed, a developer could use the 20% federal historic tax credits, which is a very desirable incentive for developers rehabilitating historic buildings. It's a dollar for dollar credit. And the other thing that we're very fortunate to have in Cook County is something called the Class L property tax incentive. You see this being used in Chicago all the time. It's not used as frequently in the suburbs, although I think some properties in Oak Park have used it. But it is basically a property tax freeze, in a way, for a developer who rehabilitates a historic building and is able to then take the current assessed value, and then after the rehabilitation is finished, keep it at that lower assessed value where it would have been at the time beginning of the rehabilitation, And then I believe, after, I think it's 10 years, then it expires and goes back up to the regular property tax rate. So of course, now this property is not making any property tax income. So in the case of a rehabilitated, building, it would make more than it is certainly now, and then eventually more beyond that. But it is a desirable incentive that is used with income-producing historic buildings in Chicago all the time, often layered with the federal historic tax credit. And I can provide examples of that of numerous types of buildings for everyone here if you would like. The types of developers that we are experienced with working with in terms of buildings like this are all familiar with these incentives already. And of course, again, the idea for us behind putting together a review study like this, especially knowing that this board in executive session will continue to talk about the sale of the property, is that for us, we really hope that this is something that the village will use in tandem with your broker, and that this can become a marketing tool for the property. That your broker can use this document when they're talking to developers, when they're talking to prospective buyers of the property, and our hope is that this will help give direction on the way the site can be redeveloped. In the meantime, we also know developers with experience who we would like to give this study to as well, who then would hopefully, we would have permission from you all to connect to your broker as well. And Chris and I are happy to take any questions at this point. I think the only other page is the acknowledgements.
Thank you. Any question? River?
Can you,
Chris?
well, actually, I'm sorry. The name?
Lisa.
Lisa? You know, let's cut through, because I think you hit at the end of your presentation what my little concern is. We're speaking of this prime property that we have in the village of Maywood. And are you actually saying that for 10 years, you will not generate taxes
No.
for the village of Maywood?
No. What I was saying is that there is an incentive available for developers in Cook County who choose to rehabilitate locally landmarked historic buildings. I think I neglected to say that, but it has to be locally landmarked for them to utilize the incentive. It is an incentive that is used often in Chicago. A municipality can choose not to allow a developer to use it. Our point of including it in this study is to say it's available. And if indeed the village was engaged in conversations with the developer about this entire site, including this building, this is an incentive that is on the books that's available for a developer. That developer may ask about the incentive anyway. And what would happen is that because the building is not currently on the tax rolls, the Cook County assessor would go ahead and determine what is the assessed value of the property today. It's going to go back into private hands. And then that determined amount is where a developer would work with you saying, okay, this is our basis of what we're going to start paying on property taxes. It's just it'll stay at that level for so many years once we expend this money to redevelop it, and then after so many years, we'll go back and pay up to what the current rate is. And it's up to the municipality, it's your discretion whether you want to allow a developer to use that or not.
Okay, I apologize, because actually, there are two conversations here. We're speaking of the widow's home, and we're speaking of the parcel of land that is south of that.
Correct.
My question, maybe I should have been more direct, is a development of the property south of the widow's home.
Well, that'll be completely back up to what the once the village, yes,
What the tax,
once the village sells that property, the assessor will determine what rate that property should be valued.
okay, so so
Yeah.
we.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mix the
No,
vacant
no,
land
no,
versus the
I
historical.
apologize for
So
not
I was speaking
clarifying.
purely about a program just relative to the historical.
Because we're actually speaking of 3 parcels of land.
Yes, yes.
We're actually speaking of 3. So the 2 parcels of vacant land,
Mhm.
okay,
This
Yeah.
program does not apply to that at all. The program I was discussing does not apply to the vacant land at all, only to the historic building. The
you
class
mentioned
L.
that because you kind of walked into, it would enhance and it would, okay, so we're not talking about that now. We're speaking of the social.
Just the historic building.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay. Sorry about the mistake.
No, no.
Any other,
Mayor,
trustee Rogers?
a few things. First, I'd like to start by requesting that the chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission be afforded the opportunity to make a statement. That entity has been instrumental in putting not only energy but information that it takes to get to this point. And I think that Mr. Cuss, I would request that he be afforded the opportunity to make a statement of comment.
Well, good evening, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present this evening. As a lot of you have been here for a while, you know this building's been sitting vacant. It is a significant structure. It's only one of a few left in the country that's really dedicated to widows of Civil War. This is a wonderful presentation. I appreciate Landmarks doing this. They did this pro bono for us. They're not making any recommendations who to use. It was a well thought out presentation. This is a significant structure that a lot of people in this community have had an attachment to for quite a while. Many of us have known each other for a long time. I've been here for 14 years, and I've heard people lobbying to do something with this building. It's a magnificent building. I live in a neighborhood over there, and I've gone down the street, catch people taking pictures. I stopped to talk to them. I thought maybe they're interested in this. They found the building fascinating. So I really hope that we could move forward with doing something with this. This is an excellent proposal. Here's how to use this whole corner. No one's pushing any agenda here with this. Like I said, it's pro bono. Mr. Heitzman's a very well qualified architect. He's got the mojo to get this thing started. Let's get this thing moving. Let's get it looking like. I think it's a great asset to the community, and I'm looking forward to your support to try and get this thing moving, get something done. And again, I thank you very much for your consideration on this.
Thank you. Trustee Rogers?
I also, because I do know that there's some other people who have been instrumental in putting some energy, which includes the Beautification and Environmental Committee, who's had an interest in having things look good. So I do. Some of those members here who had also been a part of cleanups and taking weeds out and things in and around that property. And certainly not, lastly, Mr. Dennis who's actually the husband of the deputy clerk, but Dennis should be applauded for the effort of painting those simulated windows and having them mounted on that building so that it looks a lot better than it had prior to that effort. So I think he should be publicly commended, and so thank you. And all who've been involved, including that one picture. I think what's also very important about this presentation and having an understanding about development and how property actually happens, there's no miracle cure when you're having a property developed. There is no one plan that just is guaranteed to make it. I think it's important that everybody does their part. And so the people that I just mentioned were doing their part. Part of the board's part and the plan commission's part will be to look at what it is that can happen and take all the small steps along the way, because that's how you get there. So taking the step to rehab the porch, which would make it look better and generate that interest and start to give people the vision. A presentation like this gives people a vision because it's hard to see anything other than what they've been seeing. for the last, 10 years or so. But it's really important to be able to see things, to see this building in its heyday, in its day of stately glory. Way back from 1924, on the cover of the Maywood Herald, and it has the opportunity to get there again. And so it's just so important that we don't miss that opportunity waiting for some miracle one-size-fits-all cure, that we take every step that comes before us, including leveraging the TIF, which is specifically for purposes like this, to take those monies and funds and resources so that you can move forward, including the infrastructure. When St. Charles Road, Fifth Avenue, all those things, you get the streets and the walks and the lights done first. Whether or not there's any building there, whether or not there's any plan for any specific building there, you get all of those things done, those steps that are before you. And that's what TIF is all about, to position you to the point where you can actually have plans like this, not necessarily specifically this, but plans like this come to fruition. So, I would urge everybody, when an opportunity is before them, to see not what you've been seeing, but what it can be. I do want to thank those who put this study together, and there are some specific things I'd like to refer to on the slides, if I could.
Do you want to tell me which page?
Let's see, on page 10, which was the site plan page.
The first one?
Page 10.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant,
Well, then you can use page. Okay, yeah, and that basically shows, because even though, yes, I would agree that having this parcel, this building, and the other things around it together is the best way to get it done. But I do think there's also opportunities that it could, if necessary, be independent. But I absolutely agree that having it a part of the larger development is a better, more promising way to go. So you see, I'm not sure why my mind is acting up, but I do think that there, if need be, is some opportunity to have parking on Ohio Street. If that becomes necessary, because you spoke of medical offices. I just think the concept of having professional offices, I'll call it, maybe a better term, medical, perhaps some insurance, lawyers, doctors, dentists, those kinds of services that we don't really get a lot of. And I believe that this is a location that we can draw from people from multiple communities to help us economically. If you could be on First Avenue near Lake Street in a stately building, I do think you could get insurance agents and attorneys and design professionals and medical professionals to at least some speed. Other than the housing authority, could be a tenant. So there's a number. Okay, I'll try to be brief, but we waited a lot of years to get to this point. And there's a lot of people who are here that do want to see us in progress, so I want to make this point. Over here, perhaps to have some in addition to what actually is a part of the parcel, if need be. The other points to see now, you presented three options, which or at least two options for the building floor plan. And I don't know that you talked about that much, but I think that's real important. I happen to like option number 2 better, which is page 12. And the difference on that one is the first floor of the porch is shown as being developed. So putting glass perhaps in that section of the porch and using that space. That creates more leasable space in the building as well, and perhaps a very nice little waiting or conference area on the porch. And the second floor of that, which would be page 13, the same thing happens where that area right here, which is actually on that outdoor porch, instead of just being screened in, perhaps glazed in, I think all those things make it more attractive for a developer who would want to get the largest amount of leasable space for something like that. And then to my last point, on the site plans on page, I guess 15, I think I happen to like B, the better, which is, I guess is on 16, but let me just point out that this street and the sidewalk on that street is pretty intense. So when you're walking down there, it's not necessarily real pedestrian friendly, but there's an opportunity there to widen that street, the public part of that, so you're not walking 3 feet in front of traffic. That's really intimidating. So to actually borrow some space from here. By the way, we always, when you're on a Illinois-owned road, you need to be mindful that Illinois could widen the street, and you don't want to wipe it out all your development. So if the state decides to take the road, take 8 feet of it, you want to make sure you're further enough back where that doesn't wipe out your plan.
Trustees Rogers, I'll just point out that because the building has officially been already recognized as eligible for listing in the National Register, if IDOT ever did want to come in and do some street widening, the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency already now has a place at the table in terms of mitigation relative to any design of that road because of the building's presence. So that's a benefit.
Fantastic. So I'll yield at this time. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your patience.
Trustee Jacobs. Oh, trustee Jacobs didn't have her hand up,
Oh,
but, I'll take that opportunity just to say a few things. I appreciate the presentation, and you certainly give us some things to think about. Some of the comments that trustee Rogers made were well worth thinking about in terms of Plan A versus Plan B, and certainly what can be done with that building as you presented it. And I think that that's one of the better presentations that we've had in terms of making us think about what we really need to do with that building. And you covered all aspects of it from the internal area of the building as well as an aesthetic portion too. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Trustee Cross?
Are we voting?
No.
No. You had some questions? No. Oh, you did?
And Mayor, this is not I don't believe there's anything to vote for on this proposal. It was a study that had been promised to the commission a while back. That's why it's on the agenda, because it was finished. It's informational. Hopefully it's something that excites a number of you as Maywoodians to, yes, there is vision, there is planning, there are things that can happen if we take the steps that are before us.
Mr. Meyer?
Lisa, Chris, I just wanted to state for the proposal, awesome job.
Appreciate it.
And I just want to say that now that this report is finished, we're not going to walk away. I mean, we're happy to be part of the process with staff as they talk about proposals that come forward. We're happy to be a resource. And as I said, as you continue conversations with your broker relative to the sale of the property, we're happy to even present this to that broker to talk about it and the opportunities in terms of the target developers that could respond to this type of study. And we're also happy to push some developers forward that your broker can speak to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, on the manager's report, item number 4, can I ask email out early to the board, just to make you aware as to why MCA is not gonna be able to, continue the contract, due to, unbudgeted costs and also, many of their staff are going back to college. We're gonna withdraw that item. Okay?
So does that mean,
Trustee Jacob.
so does that mean that we're still running up to August 17th?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
exactly where it's.
Yes, exactly. However, they are open next year to extend the contract, they just need more time to plan. They did want 2 weeks, but they want to withdraw it for tonight because due to, budget, due to budget costs and also their staff going back to college. So,
So you want to totally?
withdraw for this year, sir, yes. Meaning do not extend it out for this year. Leave it as is, so no action required, just withdraw this item from the agenda.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 5, proposal to demolish 2023 South 12th Avenue by Impactors P&P. This is found in your packet on page 138. Give you a little background. This property, the roof caved in roughly about 2 years ago. The owner was unable to repair the structure. The village took the owner to court with numerous continuance. The village did receive a court order, which is within the package, to demolish the property. The village solicited bids through the RFP process from demolition companies to remove the structure. The demolition proposals are attached. We had 2 come in, one from Recon for $45,000, the next one from Impactor P&P for $31,300. We staff recommend Impactor to demolish and restore the lot. Attached is proposal from Impactor's pictures of the site. The village budgeted $30,000 in demolition fees. That's based on our current budget year for demolition. The remaining funds will come out of the board line item. Look for a motion for the demolition proposal for Impactor to demolish the property 2023 South 12th Avenue in the amount of $31,300. It was in the board meeting on August 19th. Structure is, pictures of it is attached. You can see the roof is paved in it. Look for a motion. Yes, sir.
Motion before the demolition proposal for Impact to demolish the property located at 2023 South 12th Avenue in the amount of $31,300 for the village board meeting on August 19th, 2020.
Second.
Demolish 2023 South 12th Avenue by Impact P&P for the amount of $31,300. Are there any questions? Trustee Clark.
Is that a motion, move to the full board?
Yes.
Okay, because I just want to make sure. Okay.
Trustee Jacob.
My question is, we budgeted $30,000 for demolition.
Yes,
This is using up all of that budgeted amount of money for one structure.
yes.
And I know that we have demolished some other buildings and, commercial buildings, not to the tune of $30,000. And this is a residential structure, and this is too very much money to be spending out of the budget for this building here. And I think that we need to go, I wanna see it down because I know the residents have had a problem with it. This is just too much money. $30,000 is too much, and that is our total budget for demolition for the whole year.
I agree. Trustee, you make a valid point. The issue we had a company come out, an environmental company, come out to verify there is asbestos in the building, and that's one of the reasons why it is at this level. The reason I put it on the agenda, it is an eyesore, it is unsafe, and it's been like this for 2 years. And yes, I do, I am aware we're using our funds out of the demolition line item for this, but
And taking money from another line item.
yes.
And then if we use up that line item, then we're gonna be taking money from somewhere else. I mean, we're generally robbing from people to pay off. You know, and, I mean, that's all I want. Anyway.
I agree, but I think I just heard we have received a number of complaints from residents on the block, and that's one of the reasons why it's on the agenda to have it come out.
And last question, these are the only 2 vendors, bids that we had on that property?
Yes.
I'm just trying to think. Who have we used in the past? We didn't try to contact other people before they did the process.
Redcon and Actor and Leeway were all contacted. Leeway, Redcon, those were the three primary contractors that have done demolition within the village in the last 5 years. Leeway did not want to submit a proposal because it did not feel comfortable with pricing it based on not being able to access the building to assess all the material that might be inside. So they declined to quote, because the roof is collapsed. You can't get inside the building and know how much personal property was actually inside the building. The other contractors were satisfied with what they could observe. You can't go inside the building. So that's the issue on some of the pricing.
Trustee, Jacobs,
That's enough for now.
I live in this block over.
like,
I've seen this building for years. It's a hazard, and it's dangerous. The whole roof is completely cracked. I mean, it's down flat. You can't get in there. One thing you can do is tear that building down. And it's a danger for all the communities, especially for our young children. I would get rid of that building for safety value, if nothing else.
Madam President, just one question. Mr. Manager, what is the environmental concern?
Asbestos.
That's it?
Yes. Yes, yeah, by being asbestos a certain way, they have to contain it as they're removing the materials. That's what drives up the cost.
Thank you.
trustee Jacobs?
Motion's on trustee Lightfoot and second by trustee Rogers. Trustee Ely Cross?
Abstain.
Trustee Jacobs?
I'm gonna vote aye, because I know it's a problem, but I am really having a problem with that amount of money. But I know it needs to go, so I'm kinda stuck. Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Lightfoot?
Aye.
Trustee Rivers?
Aye.
Mayor Perkins?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Item number 6 is discussion of Freedom of Information Act process